Okay, guys, welcome back. I'm going to make a video here about how to tour Purdue's campus. So just to start off, let's give you an idea of what we're looking at here. This is a typical campus map of Purdue. I can zoom out a little bit so you can see the whole thing. I know this can be very overwhelming, especially when this page is put with it with all of the acronyms for the building names. Um, but we're going to help you understand exactly what you're looking at and how to navigate. So here you go. Here's Purdue's campus. We're going to zoom in and I'm going to show you the typical tour path that they would take you on if you were doing like an official Purdue tour with the university. So I'm assuming most of you have been on a tour at this point if you're viewing it now, but just in case you haven't, this is what you should expect. You'd get to Purdue's campus. You're going to park in this parking garage, which is right outside of our student union here. And you can always reference the page above this with the names and everything after, but if I do that, it'll just be a lot of back and forth and it's going to be confusing. So you're going to park in a parking garage right here. It'll be, I think, $10 max, and that's if you're there 24 hours. I took my family friends on a tour here, and it was like, I think $5 for them, and we did like an extensive tour, like 3 hours of learning about stuff while they were here. So yeah, it won't be that much for parking. Then you'll walk into the welcome center here. Very typical welcome center. You'll like get your little visitor passes if they still do that, and then you'll meet your tour guide. And the tour guide basically takes you out of Stewart Center, takes you across Memorial Mall up to the class of 1950, where I believe I think they're still doing this. You'll like walk through here, and sometimes a class will actually be happening because there's a big lecture hall in this building. So if you have STEM classes, we'll touch on this later, but you'll likely have a big lecture in this building. You'll continue through this like grassy tree area over here, cross, and then now you're on 3rd Street, which is a big Purdue thing, and I'll talk about it later, but you'll walk all the way down 3rd Street, see a bunch of stuff on there. They'll do a lot of talking to you while you're walking. One of the things that Purdue does that's really nice is that their tour guides will actually walk backwards so that they're facing you the entire time and they can see if you have questions. And additionally, they have a microphone, so you can definitely hear them. It's not like other schools I've toured, at least, where they're not facing you and you can't hear them all that well, whether that just be because they're quieter or maybe it's like inclement weather. But yeah, it's just nice that Purdue does that. So you'll come all the way down here to the corner of 3rd, and this is where our gym is, our campus gym, and they'll talk about that as they walk past here. This is Croc Lawn. It's a big grassy area where a lot of people like play spike ball and frisbee and all that in the fall, and then in the winter it's just kind of there, and sometimes if it's nice they'll host events on the lawn as well. You'll walk up here and they'll talk a little bit about housing, and then you'll cross this street here, Stadium Ave, and walk towards Ford Dining Hall. They'll stop here maybe and talk about like bikes on campus and how to navigate that. You'll cross this little like it's a kind of walking pathway street thing. And then you're going to walk in front of Cary and go down through Engineering Mall. You're going to talk about all of the engineering buildings. They will especially include this part if you are on an engineering tour. And also I want to preface that this is the tour I took. I don't know if they're still doing it this way. I see people walking along these lines when they're on tours here on campus, so I'm assuming it hasn't changed all that much, but I don't know if this is included just because I was an engineering major or am an engineering major, or if it was just part of the standard tour. But you'll walk through here and talk about all of this. They'll definitely point out that we have an on-campus pharmacy, and that's in the pharmacy building right here. It is run by the pharmacy students, so that's a cool thing for their program. You'll come around the engineering fountain here, and you'll stop, or at least you'll walk slower outside of Walk and the bell tower here, so that they'll talk about how this is just like a big space for people of any major to study, and student success centers and stuff like that. You'll come down here, and then your last stop will be the clapping circle, where you literally go in the middle of the circle and clap, and it's modeled after some Greek like way of having outdoor classrooms. So there's like a really cool echo almost in the middle. So you'll get to experience that. And then they'll take you right back into the Welcome Center and you can like ask any last minute questions and, kind of explore on your own from there. So that is what your general tour would look like. But obviously, there is a lot more to campus than what they can show you on that 1 hour tour. So I'm going to talk about how to customize your own tour after you've been on that or in addition to that. So I hope this helps. All right, let's talk about some Purdue landmarks. These are going to be things that a lot of people like to take pictures at or just see to get a feel of campus when you're here. And it's just easier to remember things better, I guess, at least for me when I was touring and I would see stuff. And I could be like, okay, so I saw this building between here and here. It just helped me get a better feel for campus. Um, I highly recommend that you guys print out a campus map. I'll put a link to it in my description if I possibly can. If not, just Google Purdue campus map, and you should get the most up to date one as one of the first couple of results. So let's get started. First and foremost, a lot of your GPSs, especially if you're coming from the East Coast, are going to direct you through an area called Chauncey. It's just a lot of shops and restaurants and things like that Purdue students hang out at a lot. It's kind of like our like home that's not Purdue, if you think about that. Like anywhere that we would hang out that's not on campus is usually in the Chauncey area. It's also where a lot of students will live once they move off campus. There's a lot of apartments and stuff like that all through these streets. So just so you know, that's kind of what you're driving through. There's like a Raising Cane's, Chipotle, noodles, Silver Dipper ice cream, like all of that. And it's kind of the last thing that you would have because once you go down State Street this way, you'll get to the landing, which is just some more shops, and then you would cross the bridge from West Lafayette into Lafayette. So if that gives you any idea of where you're starting from, there you go. We're going to zoom in. So your tour for like an official tour would usually start at the Welcome Center, but I highly recommend that you look at Purdue Memorial Union. There's just a lot of cool architecture. There's stained glass windows. It's one of the older buildings on campus. And there's actually a 3D map of campus. It's kind of like a diorama that's really cool to see in there. So I highly recommend that. I talked about the clapping circle. That's just like a cool thing people like to do when they come here. And then right here, there's an arch. It's not the official, I mean, I guess it is an official arch, but it's not usually the one that people take pictures at, although people do. You might see graduation pictures here or at the other arch up at the top of Engineering Mall. It's really up to you. Or you could do both and just, do it all. That would be fun too. Here is Memorial Mall. There's actually a statue here of John Purdue. It says it's his grave. I don't really know what to tell you about that. Theoretically, he is buried there. Hypothetically, he is buried there. In our archives, it says he is buried there. When you visit, there's no like plaque or anything saying he's buried there. Some students think it's a myth. Some students believe it. Who knows? But the story goes that he apparently requested to be buried outside of University Hall, which is right here, and it's one of the oldest buildings on campus, and it would have been finished just around the time of his death. So do with that information what you will. Memorial Mall is just a cool place where students will hang out, especially when the weather is nice, and some people will study on the lawn. Some people will, throw frisbees around or whatever. Hammocking is big. I've seen slack lines there. It's also where we host a lot of career fairs, especially like Industrial Roundtable, which is one of the biggest career fairs in this part of the country. Also, it's the biggest for our engineering majors, and it happens in the fall. So companies basically set up tents everywhere around here. Just a cool thing to walk through. Shouldn't take you very long. This little circle right here represents the Lion's Head Fountain. It's one of the stops on the fountain run, which basically takes you from the engineering fountain all the way down here to the Lion Head Fountain, where it like has little streams of water. Then everybody takes like a little drink from the Lion's Head, and then you run down here through these buildings around this other circular fountain and through Memorial Mall. Just so you know. Okay, yep. So this is the Circle Fountain. I'm sure it has a real name. That's just what my friends and I call it. Apparently, it's in Founders Park. But yeah, that's just another fountain you can see. Nothing much other than that. I know it's on a lot of Purdue postcards, but there you go. Moving upwards, this is the bell tower. kind of speaks for itself. There's also a little pond here. It was like a class gift to the university. Just a cool thing to see and sit around. It's really pretty in the fall. Right here, there's going to be a glass, like a thin glass panel held between some brick pillars, and it has the Purdue fight song written on it. If you're interested in that, you can get a picture around there. I know a lot of people that are members of Purdue music orgs get pictures there. Obviously, the engineering fountain right there if you want to get a picture. Up towards the top of Engineering Mall, there's, of course, the official, like, Purdue arch that everyone can think of. And then you have Neil Armstrong statue right here. And there's also a moon rock. Don't get too excited because everybody told me, oh my gosh, there's a moon rock here, and it's more of a moon pebble. Still super, super cool, but it's a lot smaller than you're expecting. So don't expect to see this, sizable thing when you go in there, but it is really cool. This is 3rd Street. This is the street I was talking about that you would walk down on your tour. The cool thing about it is that it is a pedestrian and bike only street, which includes like electric scooters and stuff like that. But no cars get to go down this street. And while that might be inconvenient when you're trying to drive through campus, it's really, really nice when you're like walking to classes and everything. As you can see, it's like a direct connection between what they call the academic half of campus and the academic half of campus and the residential half of campus. So all of the black buildings you see are academic buildings, and all of the yellow ones are residential buildings or dining halls. So I hope that makes sense. So yeah, really direct connection there. Almost every student walks it, especially if you're going to anywhere over here, which is like a lot of like science, engineering classes, obviously, things like that. And it also has like Neil Armstrong's like footprints, which are also by his statue up here. Like obviously they're not the actual footprints from the moon, but like molded from the footprints of the moon, and spaced as though he was walking on the moon. So those are cool to see. A lot of people walk through them and get videos of themselves doing that. Okay. Anything else about 3rd Street? Oh, there are like driving streets like through this. It's just nobody can drive like on 3rd Street, if that makes sense. I didn't circle it, but this is Elliott Hall of Music. It's where you're going to take a lot of exams, but it's also where you're going to graduate. I kind of consider that a cruel and unusual punishment, but like, it is what it is. People have walked there for years and years and years, and that's where you're going to graduate. So if you want to see it, you can probably get in. There's some doors on this side, but there's also doors on pretty much all sides of the building. So if it's open and you're here during visiting hours or working hours, then you can probably jump in and see that. Down south here, kind of away from everything, this is not the Purdue Police. Well, this is the Purdue Police Department, but this is the Sun statue. It's really cool, especially if you're interested in aerospace, sciences, things like that. That's just a cool little statue. You're going to hang out around it, or at least we did during BGR a little bit. Yeah. This whole area of campus also is like horticulture, agriculture, agricultural and biomedical engineering is also down here. Some of the vet sciences program is down here, but that's also more like in this general area, I believe. Don't quote me on that though. Sorry if I'm wrong. This is the art building. So basically anything that's like STEM or art that's not engineering is going to be down here. So I hope that makes sense. And I think also some liberal arts buildings are included in that. Okay. So moving north, you have Slater Hill. A Purdue tradition is during like the first kind of snow that sticks on campus. If we ever get a lot of snow, people will take anything they possibly can. It's like sled without a sled, basically, and you sled down Slater Hill. There's a little amphitheater here. It's really cool. Yeah. Obviously, you have our main sports stadium area. There's Mackey Arena is the basketball stadium. Obviously, you have Ross-Ade Stadium for football, and these are like practice fields and stuff like that. And then there's Holloway Gymnasium here, which is where our incredible volleyball team plays. And then if you want sports that aren't those sports, It's kind of off campus. I believe some buses go to it, but you might just have to walk, and it's a little bit of a long walk. But everybody walks to Grand Prix at the end of the year, which is like our big racetrack thing. It's kind of like the Indy 500, but for Purdue. So a bunch of the frats, sororities, things like that, clubs, a lot of ME clubs have cars, and you basically like you build your car and then you race it around the track, and everybody goes, and it's a big grand old time. And then you have the other sports complexes up here like tennis, softball, baseball, soccer, all of that. Um, if you're interested in swim and dive, which we do have a really good swim and dive team, I I believe they're in the Aqua Center down here next to the co-rec. I'm not entirely sure. I'm sorry. Okay. And I think that pretty much does it for all of the landmarks. Sorry that was like a little long and winded. But I hope that gives you like some ideas for where you might want to get a picture or get food. Although I do highly encourage you to try a dining hall if you are here during business hours, because I think Purdue has some of like the best food of college campuses, but we're going to be honest, it's still college campus food. It's not the greatest and it can get repetitive, but you should know what you're getting into before you go anywhere. So if you're touring any colleges, try a dining hall while you're there to get a feel for the food, because that's going to become very important to you once you're a student. So I hope that's helpful. Now we'll get into how to plan your own custom tour. Okay, guys, so how do you customize your own tour if you're doing a self tour, or if after your standard tour you want to see things that pertain more to what you're interested in, which is totally understandable. First of all, you are going to consider, are you applying to a learning community? For those of you that don't know what a learning community is, it is basically a group that usually lives together. Sometimes it's just like an interest group kind of, and you don't necessarily have to live there, but usually you live together and you're of either the same major or have a common interest. There's a whole bunch of learning communities here at Purdue. I can't even get into them all, but one of the ones, the one that I was a part of, was honors engineering, or the honors college. To be clear, the honors college covers all of the majors at Purdue. Anyone can be admitted. You just have to apply and they have to select you. Honors engineering and Goss Scholars is like a subset learning community within the honors college. And they all take honors engineering FYE courses. That's been a big like question we've been getting as like ambassadors and stuff like that. So I hope that clarifies it. So you're going to find out, okay, do I plan on applying to a learning community? And then eventually, I'm not exactly sure when, the learning communities will release where they are going to be located at Purdue. And so they will tell you what residence hall they will be in. And so then you can go to that residence hall and like at least see the outside. And then usually Purdue has a very helpful community. I know I would not have a problem if anybody wanted to come up and see my dorm. I would have really liked to do that as a prospective student. So usually people wouldn't have an issue with that. Just, like don't be creepy about it. Just kind of like if you see a student heading into that dorm, if they're leaving, don't bother them because they're probably heading to a class. But if they're heading into the dorm, just be like, hey, we're like looking around campus. Can we just like come up and see your dorm really fast if that's okay? And usually people would probably say yes. But if not, there's like lots of videos out there of dorm tours, the ones that I've done, and then there's also others, of course. So just look it up, and then I'll link the university residences page on here as well, so that you can kind of just like see for yourself what the dorms might look like. So do that, and then also you're going to check if you know you want to be a part of certain extracurricular activities, where do they practice or where do they have their functions? For me, for example, I will go through this example. I basically made it for what I would have liked to see on a custom tour of Purdue, because we didn't really know what to look at. So we kind of just walked everywhere. Obviously, I guess it worked because I am here now, but it just would have been nice to have it streamlined a little bit and know exactly what I was looking for. So for me, I'm on the club volleyball team here at Purdue, and so I know we practice at the co-rec. We would practice at the gym, right? So Anybody that's involved, that's why it's in orange. Anybody I think should see the gym. Anyone that wants to work out or wants to start working out or just wants to live an active, healthy lifestyle, look at the gym. Just look at the area you'd be doing that in. Some people will be like, intramural sports is my thing. Some of those will be on the co-rec, some would be on the intramural fields, things like that, right? Usually I will link the club sports page if you're interested in that. You can find out where they would practice, just like email the contact listed under that sport and things like that. Obviously, like if you're in music and you want to be a part of the music organizations, then this Hagel Hall, which is the music building, is going to be where you want to be. With some Googling and some research and maybe reaching out to people, you can find out where your groups would be on a regular basis, and you can take a look at that. Okay. Next up, you're going to try and figure out, what am I interested in majoring in? And then you're going to look up that program on Google, our best friend, and you're going to check out, do they have their own building? Do they have their own area? Bigger majors are obviously going to be easier to find this information about. So if you're in a really, really small major, you might want to just contact the like program director or things like that. Usually if you Google a major at Purdue, they're going to have their own website anyway. So just find a contact on there, send them an email, call them, either way, and just ask, hey, where are you located on campus? And then you can find that on here and plan to visit it. So for me, I'm a mechanical engineering major. This is the mechanical engineering building. So therefore, I should probably see it when I'm on my tour. You're also going to check out, if you are visiting during a weekday or a weekend that is like in the middle of the year but doesn't overlap with a break, you should likely be able to get into most academic buildings, and you can kind of just see what the buildings look like that you might have classes in. So obviously, like if you're an engineering student, you're going to have classes in here. If you're in other majors, it's a lot harder for me to say just because I don't have experience with it, but I'm sure through one of the contacts at the university, you can figure out where a lot of your classes would be. Definitely check out Walk. I think anybody and everybody should check out Walk. Everybody that I know here has worked in there at some point, and usually does it on a pretty regular basis because it's a huge building. So it's just really nice to see it. There's also a library in there. I think it's the engineering library. So there you go. Elliott, I mentioned before, this is Cheney Hall of Science. So if you're in anything STEM related, check that out. That's where like a lot of labs are going to be held. Class of 1950, that's that massive lecture hall, which gives you a pretty good feel. You see one lecture hall, you're going to kind of know what they all are going to look like. Witherall Hall of Chemistry, anybody in the sciences, go in there. Anyone in engineering, go in there. You're very likely going to have a big lecture in there at some point. And then the Union. Okay. Anything else that I think is important? Let's see. I'm checking my notes. Yeah, great. So when you are looking at Purdue and you're going through your own self-tour or the official tour or whatever, make note of where your program kind of lives on campus. And then when you have time, go back there and see if you can meet somebody in person. This works especially well if you're coming during business hours of campus. Reminder, Purdue is on Eastern time, and we do observe daylight savings, at least as long as the country observes daylight savings. Who knows if that's going to continue? But there you go. So be mindful of that when you're planning visits. But try and find somebody in your program. It doesn't matter if it's a secretary or an advisor or something like that. Like anybody at all can direct you to somebody that can help you. That's one of the things I love about Purdue is how helpful everybody is, because 98% of the time, if that person can't help you, they're going to find you somebody quickly that can. And that was really appealing to me when I was looking at schools, was Purdue was so much more dedicated to finding help for me. And I didn't even go here yet. So do with that information what you will, but if you can find somebody, you now have a new contact in your program or your program of interest, and you'll be able to kind of like branch out from that person and meet more people and potentially get to talk to students. Usually it's not something that people think of right away to reference you to students, but if you are asking somebody in that program like, hey, especially if it's an advisor, like I would really like to speak to a student in my major, do you know of anybody that might be interested in talking to me? a lot of the time, I don't really know what percent of the time, but like definitely over 50, they're going to be like, yeah, I do. Let me see if they're okay with that. And then I will get back to you and send you their information. And it's great. And then you'll get to talk to somebody in your major. So Purdue is very helpful in that way. Um, as you can see, I still have the standard tour path up. Hopefully that gives you a good idea of like what you're going to see on a standard tour and what you might want to see otherwise. I know I probably repeated myself somewhat in this video. I'm trying my best. I'm clearly not like formally trained in how to tour Purdue. It's just what I think is important and what I encourage you to consider. So I hope this has helped you. Check out the links I've put in the description. Um, and let me know if you have any other questions. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.